Howdy everyone, it's Base here. First, sorry for not uploading as much on YouTube. I promised that Lies of P video I promised months ago is in the works. I was working on it first thing this morning. I've just been very busy adjusting to life in Denmark as someone who barely speaks Danish. And life does not stop for anyone. So we've been incredibly busy here. So I appreciate your patience and understanding for that being delayed. But that's not why we're here today. Today we are here to talk about one of my favorite things, which I've been doing a lot of on stream recently, which is the Archipelago multi-world, multi-game randomizer. I have been running a community Archipelago for the last couple days. It's been about a week or so since I started it up, and I'm doing it for the entire month of July and already planning future ones with even more people. And I'm also, outside of my community, planning some with friends to do, you know, when they're available. So I've had a few people ask me a lot of the same questions. And people have asked me about help with setting up Archipelago because it just seems a little daunting at first. And I'll admit some of these setup guides do seem like walls of text. So I'm hoping that this video, as long as it doesn't go too long, can be a good kind of visual guide as to what things look like. Full disclaimer, I do not work on Archipelago software. I am not an expert in all of the different games and options and setup things. I'm going to just give you the basic framework so that you can start figuring out some of these things. There are many more than you think games that work with Archipelago. Most of them, though, are custom made by the community and are not fully integrated into the ecosystem. We'll get into that in a moment, but just know that for a lot of games, you will still have to read a setup guide because it's going to be particular to that game. But we'll get there. So let's start with the very basics. What is Archipelago? This is their homepage, archipelago.gg, and all websites I mentioned, I will be putting in a link down, or putting links down in the description, so you don't have to memorize anything. It'll all be down there. But this is their homepage, where, you know, you can look at the supported games, you can look up setup guides, you can, you know, they have all sorts of stuff. Right off the bat, the button in the top right, their Discord is incredibly helpful. There are like tens of thousands of people in that Discord server, and they will help you. Somebody on that Discord will have an answer to the question you are asking. Just trust me. Just trust me, they will. But for right now, we'll start here. You would go here, and you know, they explain Archipelago is a cross-game mod system which randomizes different games and uses the result to build a single unified multiplayer game. Items from one game may be present in another, and you will need your fellow players to find items that you need in their games to help you complete your own. The goal, of course, is that everyone completes their games. We'll talk about win conditions a little later with the setup stuff. So what you would want to do from the Archipelago website, you go to setup guides. They have many guides here, including guides for all of the core games that are shipped basically with the Archipelago software. But in this case, we're going to just use the basic getting started guide. They tell you everything here about installing the software, how to generate a game, how to host on the server or locally. But yeah, as you can see, it's a lot. So we're going to do this, you know, my way. So we will click here for the latest release. This takes you to their GitHub page. The GitHub page is very detailed, very well maintained. They are super thorough about everything. So the most recent release as of today, July 9th, is the release from April 1st, which is version 0.6.7. You would scroll down here past all the comments and fixes and changes that people have made. And it's a big community effort. It's awesome. You would go down here and you would pick, you know, your particular distribution. If you're on Windows, pick this exe file. If you're on Linux, you can have it as an app image, or you can have it through the tarball, and you can figure it out from there. But yes, you would install it from these files doing whatever it is you would normally do to install it. For most of you, that will probably be Windows. If you're like me, I'm running Linux Mint. I have other considerations, so I think I installed the app image. But you would install that, and then once it's all ready to go, you would have your Archipelago launcher, which is this. Ta-da! This is it. So we'll come back to this in just a moment. One of the other questions I was getting a lot of is what games are available? And I already told you it's many games. First of all, this is the game sheet. Here are the core verified games. That means these are the games that have been tested and proven working perfectly with Archipelago, and their AP worlds and setup files and everything are included when you download this software. The window I just pulled up has stuff for all of these games already figured out. So there's no other thought process. You just do setup through the launcher and you're good to go. There are, however, hundreds of other games marked as playable and either stable or unstable. And when I say hundreds, I do mean hundreds. The last one on here is line 559. So there's roughly 560 playable games. Now, granted, many of them are unstable, which means you can and should expect bugs to happen. But also a ton of them are stable, and there are some like big name games in here too. So in my experience, I have only done core verified worlds up until recently. I was playing games that were already, tested and proven, but just this past week, I wanted to try something different. And so I went and picked out Kirby Superstar, which is one of my favorite Super Nintendo games. And I got all of the information that I needed from here. So that gets into kind of our next topic, which is the setup, the YAMLs, the AP worlds, how to make a multi-world, things like that. So in this case, I will pull up from the game sheet. If you want a custom world, you would go through that game sheet. There's links to the GitHubs, the setup guides, things like that. So I went here and okay, here is Kirby Superstar's AP world. What does that mean? This .APWorld file tells the Archipelago software how the game functions in the context of the multi-world randomizer. It, I don't know all of the ins and outs, but I would imagine it tells the Archipelago software, hey, here are all the different possible check locations. Here are, here's the trigger for the game being finished. Here's whatever, but it's specific to each game. So for the core verified games, all of these APWorld files are already installed. They're already in there. If you want to install your own, you would have to download it here. So for example, I earlier this week downloaded this file and I went over to, I don't know why that's open twice, but we'll use the big one. I went here and I clicked on install APWorld. I hit open and it pulls up a file browser. And so I navigated over to my downloads folder where that file was, and it loaded it in with no hiccups or anything. So that is how you would install a custom APWorld file. There's another way to do it, but this is the easiest way to show visually how to do it. So let's say you have done that. Great. Now you get into the YAMLs. So what you would do from your Archipelago launcher, you would go to Options Creator. And what this is basically your configuration for whatever game you want to play. This list on the left is all of the AP worlds. So when I just installed that one, it put it in this list. Normally it wouldn't be there, but here it is, Kirby Superstar. This lets you pick all of the options for your game. So you can customize the Archipelago randomizer to be the experience you want it to be. how do you want to play the game? What checks do you want? Do you want to exclude anything or include things so that they are guaranteed to be part of it? You know, what you know, parts of the game are available, things like that. So we'll use Kirby Superstar as our example here. Let's start from the top. Many games have Deathlink as an option, which is just, hey, when you die, everyone that has this setting on also dies. So you don't have to participate in that, but you could if you wanted to. Progression balancing dictates how quickly you will get stuck and rely on other people to find your items to unstick you. You can set that higher if you don't want to get stuck as frequently. You can set it lower if you're okay with that. I usually keep mine right in the middle. That way stuff is kind of evenly shuffled across all the games. Accessibility, you can really go between full or minimal. Full means that logically you can get everywhere. Minimal will lock you out of things. Minimal will say, hey, this isn't required to get to the end of the game, so we're not giving it to you. So that might lock you out of entire areas or specific items or whatever. So that's something to keep in mind for how you want to set up the game. With the example of Kirby Superstar, it is 7 games in one. So in this case, I say, okay, of those 7 games, I want to complete 6 of them as my win requirement. Okay, great. And then down here, there is the required sub games, and I can hit edit and I can type in the name of all these games to say, all right, yes, I only need 6 of them, but these ones have to be done. So in this case, Milky Way Wishes is generally considered the last story game in Kirby Superstar. So that is the final kind of requirement. Like that has to be completed. Otherwise you haven't won. In this example as well, you can pick your starting sub game. They have a list of all of them here. I hit random when I set this up. That way I could start in any of them and it makes things more interesting. You can specify which ones you want to include specifically. And that would be mostly useful if you only wanted 3 or 4. But when you've got 6 of the 7 games required, it doesn't really matter. You can do consumable checks in this game. So things like 1-ups, specific food pickups, things like that. They would be included in the check pool. So I would have to go out of my way to find all of the hidden 1-ups in order to get all the different checks. In this game, Kirby's copy abilities sometimes show up as these little trophy pedestals called essences. They are scattered all throughout the game, and instead of just giving you the ability, you interact with them and they also send a check. So I turned those on because that really doubled the amount of checks available. So, let's say we put that on, whatever. And then there's, specific ones for Great Cave Offensive and Milky Way Wishes, the different sub games. It's all the specific things for that. And then like a lot of other randomizers, there's visual modification as well. So we have stuff like that. And then for another example that I'm going to do is Tunic. So Tunic, amazing game. I'm not going to go into too many story details. Go play Tunic. But this is what Tunic's option generator looks like. Sword progression. All right, you get 4 sword upgrades that are added to the item pool. You can decide whether or not you start with a sword. You can shuffle your abilities into the pool so that even if you know how to do something that's a secret in Tunic in the base game, you can't do it until you find the actual thing that tells you how to do it. You can specify locations for certain key items. You can do, you can shuffle in different things like the fuses or the bells or whatever. You can shuffle in breakables. You can randomize the grass. It's whatever the community has come up with. So, that there's a lot of options and it all depends on the game. One of the things that's important though is about how you win and what checks are required. Again, checks can be anything and everything. Checks are items you pick up from chests, items you get from defeating a boss, things given to you after a cutscene. It could be an ability, it could be an item, it could just be a location saying, okay, you can now access this thing. In Kirby Superstar, for example, there are checks that unlock entire games. So if I wanted to get to Spring Breeze, I need to have somebody send me in the randomizer Spring Breeze, and that opens that whole game up for me. In Tunic, that's not that big of a deal. It's just having the right equipment to get to different places. So it all comes down to what the specific game setup is, which usually you can dictate here in the YAMLs. So then that gets into the win condition. How do we win a game? How do we win an AP? The end goal of any archipelago is that everyone completes their game. But everyone in their setup files and their YAMLs, they dictate what they want their win condition to be. So in this case with Tunic, you could set up what's called the hexagon quest. So instead of finding the 3 key items that unlock the final boss, you could say, all right, I want to do this hexagon quest where instead of the 3 key items, there are 20 golden hexagons just scattered throughout the multi-world. And that's how they want to win. And stuff like that's really good if you're doing a big multi-world randomizer with like 10 people or more. It's like, all right, you're not going to finish your game super early if you've scattered 20 required items throughout the whole thing. So it can, it's just a different play style. It makes things very interesting, and it gives you lots of options. So let's say that's the case. Well, the win condition is probably, let's see. Oh, it doesn't say here, but the win condition in Tunic is essentially beat the final boss in one of 2 ways. I will not discuss those because that's game spoilers, but you have either your hexagon quest or your 3 key items that will unlock the boss door. Then you go deal with the final boss, and then hooray, you win. And that's that. And then when you are done, anything that you didn't collect in your game, any checks that you just ignored, they will automatically get pushed out to everyone else. So everyone gets their items once you're done. And at the same time, your game pulls in anything that other people hadn't found for you yet. And on their ends, it's just marked as like, oh, this check's already been found, or this check's already completed, whatever. That way they don't waste their time doing something if you're already done your game and it doesn't change anything. Now, some of that stuff can be junk or filler items. It all depends on your settings and your game. So, for example, with Kirby Superstar, all of the filler items are, 1-ups and Maxim tomatoes to heal you. So they are what are considered non-important checks. You do not need them to get to the end of the game. But the game unlocks, Kirby's ability unlocks, those are important checks. They are checks that you need in order to finish the game. So it very much depends, again, on the game. Your stat upgrades may not technically be considered important checks. They may be filler or junk. They can still be helpful, but they are not crucial to finishing the game, as far as the game's logic dictates. And we will get into a discussion on logic a little bit later, because that's a separate can of worms. I want to get back to the game setup. So once you have gone through this YAML file or this options generator, you would, make your YAML file. In this case, I always name mine base dash the name of the game I'm playing. So base dash Tunic in this case, because I always play with the same rule set for Tunic. If I was doing hexagon quest instead of the 3 key items I need, I would do base dash Tunic dash HQ, let's say. That way I know when I'm looking to generate a game, I would say, oh, HQ, that's Hexagon Quest. I want to pull that one right away instead of going back and making a new YAML file. So you would do that. You would hit this export options button, and then you would go and save it to your players folder. So wherever you have Archipelago set up, you're going to see this lovely mess of things. And I've added some stuff here that I'll get to in a little bit. But the players folder is the important one. So you would go into the players folder, and you see I have a lot of subfolders in here. Normally, the players folder only comes with these two, presets and templates. Templates are the default YAML files for every game that essentially is, if I opened up the options generator and hit export, this is what I would get. I would get one of these templates as my YAML. So you can open these manually. I'll pick a hat in time just to show you. This is what a YAML looks like. It's like, all right, your progression balancing, your accessibility, your death link, all that fun stuff, how things are shuffled. It's all the same stuff, but it's doing it in a text editor instead of doing it through the visual thing. Personally, unless you really know what you're doing, use the visual thing. That's my advice. And then presets, if you're not sure where to start with the options generator, look at some of these presets. Try out one of them for your games. We have my friend Drufel is playing StarCraft 2 in this month's community AP. There are 9 different StarCraft 2 presets, depending on how long you want it to go. Anything from 12 hours down to like 3 hours. There's one that's 30 plus hours. So again, you can really customize these things to be exactly what you want. Stardew Valley, I think, has another like 8 or 9. Has another 8 presets, depending on how easy, how hard, how much you want things randomized. So again, if you don't know where to start, look at the presets folder. You'll get a really good idea of some different things you could do. What I also recommend in your players folder is make a custom folder. This is where you can keep your specific YAMLs. That way they don't get mixed up with all the other stuff. I have, 7 different YAMLs here for Hollow Knight, a couple for Kingdom Hearts, the one for Kirby Superstar that I made this week, Risk of Rain 2, Tunic, Wind Waker. So it's like, okay, these are my rules. This is how I want to play each of these games. I'm going to keep them here. And then I have ones for the community archipelago I'm doing, the base apelago. This is what everyone sent me. These are their rule files. That way, I'm not messing with it. They have set things up the way they want to play them. And, same idea over here for my friends who asked for this video, the chumps. I am putting together an archipelago for them. So, hi chumps. So the reason the players folder is important is because this is what the AP generator up here, this option, this is the folder it pulls from. So I'm going to pick a few different games here. I'm going to say Wind Waker, Tunic, and Kirby Superstar. All I did was copy those, and I'm just going to paste them in here. Nothing fancy, no trickery. So now what happens? The generate button, if I hit open, generate a multi-world with the YAMLs in the players folder. It is only looking for these. It does not care about all of these other folders that I have in here. So just so you guys can see it, I will go ahead. That's that. That's that. I will hit generate. It says all sorts of stuff, and then it's gone. So what did that do? If I go back into my archipelago folder, just go up one, and I go to output, I will see right here by date modified, just now at 11:23 basically, I have a new AP file. So this zip file is what you would be using to host the game, whether you host it locally on your computer or on the website. I highly recommend the website unless you're just doing a solo archipelago. So one thing I'm going to do, because I know this is going to show my IP address when I do it, I'll show you how to self-host in just a moment. But this Archipelago zip file, as you can see, the numbers are not helpful. So I highly recommend just organize by date made, and it'll make your life easier. But you can see that I have things called patch files here. This one is the AP Kirby Superstar, and this one is the AP The Wind Waker. When you're playing games with emulators, generally you need to patch them. It's going to be a custom ROM made from the base ROM, modified using this information from these patch files, and it spits out a new ROM. For, individual games, there are individual, mod managers, patchers, randomizer programs, things like that. Wind Waker, I know, has its own randomizer, and then it also has an Archipelago client or an Archipelago randomizer that the menus are almost identical, and it's just instead on the Archipelago one, I would upload this file into it, point it at my, my ROM of Wind Waker, and it would spit out the new game file that is all I need for Archipelago at that point. But that depends on your specific game, so read your setups. I will not be able to do that for you. And the same thing with Kirby Superstar. I have to run it through a specific thing in the Archipelago to get it set up to actually spit out the patched game that's all randomized and everything shuffled. All right. So we have that. We have this zip file. What does that do? Well, if I just wanted to host this locally because it's just me playing, I would hit the host button. I'd hit open. I would go up here. I would go to the output folder and I would say, okay, this is the one I just made. I'll hit okay. And you won't see it because it's in this little terminal window here. And I'm not going to show it to you because my IP address is on there. But that will tell you basically, yes, it's hosting, on localhost. So what I could do, we're going to open the text client. The text client is just your default client. For many games, this is all you need. For some games, you'll see on this list that you've got the Zelda 1 client, the Adventure client, the BizHawk client, the KH2 client. You will need to use those specific, game-specific clients, depending on what game you're playing. Otherwise, the game will not properly communicate with the Archipelago server. These clients exist as that interface between game and server. So you have to use them or it will not work. I promise you. I tried doing Wind Waker on just the text client and I started with nothing. I did not have my sword. I literally had a sail and no chests did anything. Once I opened up the Wind Waker specific client and connected, it all suddenly worked. So read your game setups. Use your specific game's client. So in this case, I'm just going to use the text client because that's what Tunic uses. Like I said, we're currently hosting locally. So I'm going to say localhost. I hit enter your slot name, base-tunic. That's the name I gave my YAML file. And it says, congrats, you're connected now. So now if I were to open Tunic and start pulling stuff up, I would get notifications in here saying, oh, base-tunic found whatever for whoever, or base-tunic found their own item name. That's how it works. That's how it's set up. But let's say you're playing with many people across the world, across the country, across town, whatever, and you don't feel like having them all connect to your computer. What you would then do is go back to the main Archipelago page. You could hit start playing and you could host a pre-generated game. From here, you upload that file that you had just made. So let me open this file here. So now it tells you, okay, here's the seed information. Here's when things were created. There are 3 players because I put 3 games in here. You can download the spoiler log, which is in the zip file, and then you create a new room. And so now you can see here, okay, I have my seed information. I have, the name and port that I have to connect to, which I will copy right now. And you can see, all right, from here, download your patch files. So when you're playing with multiple people, highly recommend use the website, upload that file. They can then download their patch files and set up their games for, whatever they need to do. Everyone has their own individual tracker page. And these are the different names. These are the important things that you'll need for connecting. So now if I go back here, I would say, okay, we're going to connect to archipelago.gg port number 56340, because that's what it says right there. I hit connect and it's the same exact thing. I would say, all right, base-tunic. I'm connected. Great. Awesome. So that's that. And you'll see that the text client that you're using locally will have pretty much all the same information as the server's text client. So that's it. That's it. You are connected. The game is generated. It's being hosted on the website. You can get started right now. You can just start playing your games and have a great time. There are some things I would recommend though. And most of the community would probably agree with me. We'll use Tunic as the example here. So this is from the Archipelago wiki. They have, articles of mixed length, but basically talking about, the different games that are available for Archipelago, both custom and core verified. And usually under these games, you'll see, all right, here's the information. Here's the game info. Here's the setup guide. Here's the options page. But the thing I would recommend is that you have some kind of tracking system. There are a few games like Hollow Knight, for example, that have map mods, or the randomizer has already built in some kind of map or tracking system so that you can see quickly and easily what places you have already checked and what items you already have. For games that don't have that, the communities have made resources using Pop Tracker or Universal Tracker or some other system. I am on Linux, so Pop Tracker is what works for me. So what I would say you would do, first of all, there's the Pop Tracker wiki page here, and that links to their GitHub page. So I would go over to the GitHub page. Yep, that's a lot of code and stuff. I would go over here to releases. I would download the latest one. Download depending on your your operating system. Win64, so Windows is down here. App image for Linux users, or if you want the Ubuntu 2204, that's there. Mac OS even has one. You can just download a tarball. So there are plenty of options. You can compile it from source code if you want to, but Pop Tracker is what I would highly recommend for games that have it. And I'll put the link to this page specifically. Here are a list of all the games that have Pop Tracker. So it's a lot. So when you go from this page to your specific game, so again, I'm using Tunic as the example, they'll have under a resources section, Pop Tracker pack. So you would, click on this. It would take you to a GitHub. I already had it open, but whatever. And I would download this zip file, the Tunic tracker.zip. You do not need to unpack this. You do not need to install anything. There's no black magic. It is so much easier than you think it is. So because I'm on Linux, I have loaded the Pop Tracker just as something in Steam, just so it's easier for me to find. So start up your Pop Tracker and you will get this thing down here, right below the camera. What you would have to do when you download this Tunic Tracker zip file, open your downloads folder and literally click and drag into this window that is, into Pop Tracker. It'll be a blank window. It'll probably look something like this when you first open it, just a black screen. Click and drag that zip file in. It will ask if you would like to install that tracker. And once you do, you will be greeted with this map. So, okay, great. You have a tracker now. How does that work? The tracker connects to your server. So in this case, I'm connected to archipelago.gg colon 56340. In the tracker, you can't see it up here, but up top, you'll see a button that says AP. You click on that button and it brings up this little window where you can say, all right, enter your Archipelago host and port. So again, you can just copy this whole thing right here and you hit OK. You put in your slot name, which is right over here. So in my case, it's base-tunic. I hit OK. I did not set up a password for this one, so I don't have to put anything in. I hit OK. And now you can see that the tracker has changed. There's a lot more red on it now. It is now connected, and you can also see it here. It just popped up. Tracking Tunic has joined Pop Tracker. So now this and the server and your game are all properly communicating with each other. Tunic, as an example, the randomizer mod for Tunic has Archipelago integration already built in. So when I open up Tunic, I check the box that says Archipelago, I put in that same login information that I just showed you, and it'll tell me in bright green letters, connected. So when I start the game, it all works. All three of these things talk to each other. The text client, all four of these things, the game, the text client, the server, and the pop tracker. All of them will keep track of the same things. So this map might look a little confusing. There's lots of green, red, and some yellow. What does that mean? So off the bat, and you can zoom in on this, by the way. Green means it is something I can just walk right up to. I can just get it. There's nothing logically stopping me. So in this case, the stick house right here. This is one of the first places you're supposed to go in Tunic to get a weapon. In this case, it's the stick. You walk in there, you open a chest, you get a check. Great. So this is green because nothing is stopping you. And for the sake of argument, without starting up the game, when you do that, it will change to that. In this case, they give you an open chest icon and the block turns gray. That means you have found it. There's nothing else there. Great. Now you may also be asking then, okay, well, if green means go, red means stop. Yes. Red means you do not have what you need yet to get that check. There is something stopping you from accessing that check according to your YAML file and your setup. When you see these where it's a split color, it just means that in one location, there's some of each. I've had ones where it's red, yellow, and green. So in that location, there was something I could get, something that I could not get, and then yellow, which I saw over here on the map. Yellow means you can get it if you go outside of the logic of your YAML file and your game setup. And so that is now where we will get to the logic discussion. Basically, logic you would discuss as in logic or out of logic. In logic means that in your settings, you have said, I want these things randomized this way. And the Archipelago software will build the game using that framework and say, okay, you told me that these places are required. These abilities or items are shuffled in. And then it will look at the APWorld file and say, okay, this check requires items X, Y, and Z in order to actually access it. Because the player said this thing is required and this item requires these things, it will determine whether or not you can or cannot get to it. And that's why a tracker is so important. It helps you just keep track of where everything is and what you've picked up. But two, it helps you visually see very quickly what you are and are not expected to do. Now, in pretty much every game, there are glitches or skips or tricks you can do to get places you shouldn't be going to at that time. Tunic is no exception. Tunic has stuff like that everywhere. In this case, there are ways you can get to the West Furnace and go to where the lantern pickup is, but you do not have to. And that's the important thing here. If it's yellow, It means you can do it if you know the tricks, but it is not something that is currently blocking your progression or the progression of anybody else. So just because you can doesn't mean you have to, and you should not feel pressured to do that. But if you know how to do that, that trick, that skip, that glitch, that out of bounds, whatever it is, go ahead and do it. You might get an item that speeds up the randomizer because you might get something way earlier for somebody else that they would have waited on until you had gotten there, the normal vanilla way. But the logic is always going to dictate properly what you have to do, what you can do optionally, and what you cannot do. But again, it's all based on your YAML and your customization. So as an example, in Wind Waker, there is a dungeon that requires you to have a certain song called the Earth God's Lyric. There are giant stones blocking doors that can only be destroyed with that song. There are glitches you can do in order to put Link in a state where you can go out of bounds and around those giant rocks and push through the door that's behind them. It is not an easy glitch to do, but it can be done. So when I go into my Wind Waker setup, there, I believe, is an option that says, do you want precise movement and tricks to be included in logic? If I say no, then doing those glitches is completely optional and it would just speed things up, but it is not required. Somewhere else before then in the multi-world, somebody would find the song that I need, the Wind Waker, and all of the items that I need to get to that point. I do not have to do that skip, but I can. If instead I check the box saying, yes, include precise movement, tricks, glitches, out of bounds, whatever, then it changes a lot because the AP software will look at that and it will say, okay, you're telling me you can and are willing to do this. I will use that against you. So suddenly the song that I might have needed to get past one of those giant rocks might be locked behind that giant rock. And it is going to assume that that does not matter, that I can get around it. I might get to the end of that dungeon and still not find that song. I might finish the Wind Waker and never get that song because it is assumed I knew how to do that out of bounds, that skip. So that's where it gets really dangerous. Because if you say you can do something and then you can't do it, suddenly you're stuck. Potentially a lot of other people are stuck. And it brings the whole archipelago essentially to a halt until something gets figured out. There are ways around this though. In the text client or on the server just has extra arguments, but we're connected with Tunic right now. So there's a skip I'm thinking of that goes between this house and this kind of hidden cave over here. These are the same. If you look at the names, those are the 4 same checks. So there's a skip you can do using a late game item called the Hero's Laurels. I don't know where the Hero's Laurels are. So if I had picked up a few things and I built up enough points in the archipelago system, I could say /hint. I'm sorry. Is it exclamation hint? Exclamation hint. Sorry. So I would say exclamation hint. And it tells me a hint costs 30 points. I have 0 points because I've done nothing. But what I could do is I could say exclamation hint, Hero's Laurels. It would tell me I can't afford the hint. But if I could afford the hint, it would tell me, oh, base-tunic's Hero's Laurels are located at so-and-so's world and the exact location of them. So then I could say, okay, for me to do this skip, I need somebody to find the Hero's Laurels for me. So let's say then that it's in a place where someone has been locked out of and there's no hope of getting it. In the server, and let's try this here, but you should be able to do release and then item name. So I would go in here and I would say release Heroes Laurels. So that doesn't work on here because that's me releasing an item for myself. But if I go over here, release Heroes, if I can spell Laurels, suddenly could not find player Heroes Laurels to release. There's a problem. So the commands are very specific. So let's do /help, and it will tell me in here in a moment when it gets to it. All right. Oh, it's not release. I'm sorry. Release is the command when you give up. So the timeout, and let's correct that. Release and then player name says send out the remaining items from a player to their intended recipients. That happens automatically when you complete the game. But if you give up and you are done playing, you can use that command. You can shut down your game and it's all over. So what I meant to type though was send item name. So I haven't had to do this before, luckily. But let's say send Heroes Laurels. Could not find command. Okay. Send Heroes Laurels. Could not find command. So from the text client, you can't really do that. But from here, I could do /send base tunics Heroes Laurels. If I do that, the cheat console says, all right, we are sending that. And over here in the tracker, the Heroes Laurels, this item right here, lit up. Normally it would look like that. It would be gray, but now it's lit up. It's in its normal color. And what you can see then, right up here and down here at the house, it suddenly went from all red to red and yellow. So what that means is, okay, you have this item now. There is a skip available to you. It's out of logic. You do not have to do it. Nothing is locked behind you doing it, but you can do it. And having that skip gives me access to other things. Again, there's no consequence for me not doing it. It is completely optional because I told the game and I told the Archipelago in my YAML file, do not require this. Let me do it if I want to, but do not require it. So let's say I go ahead and I do that particular skip. Great. That gets me the normal chest that's inside the house and the pickup where the shield was. With those two out of the way, it turns back to red because I don't have the Holy Cross to finish the other puzzle and get the other checks. And that's that. So that's kind of an overview of logic. You can have things that are in logic, which are in green. Out of logic is yellow. Red is just unavailable. Now, depending on the particular game and your settings, it may tell you that something is unavailable, but you know some other trick that maybe isn't accounted for. In Wind Waker, I've had that a lot where, if I don't have the song that changes the wind's direction, but I start Wind Waker with this thing called the Swift Sail, which always means that the wind is at my back when I'm sailing and it changes with my direction. There are places where I can use that to say, all right, I'm going to force the wind to be in this direction, even though I don't have the song that does it. And that lets me get things. So red generally means it cannot be reached. But if you know better than the game, you can do it. It may very much just be the coding and the logic and how the pop tracker interprets things, but sometimes red things you can still get. Generally, though, the tracker is very good at keeping things straight. And so that's it. We have covered what Archipelago is. We have covered a little bit of how to install it. Again, it will depend on your operating system and your specifics, but generally it's download the thing, start the program. I've shown you guys the game sheet with everything that's playable, both core verified and custom AP worlds. We've gone over making a YAML file, making the multi-world itself, hosting it. We have talked about checks, important versus non-important, your what can or can't be a check, which is the answer is everything. The win conditions all depend on your game. With, like I said before, with Kirby Superstar, it's beating 6 of the 7 games, generally ending with the final boss fight from the last game, which is the one required one. With Tunic, it's defeating the final boss in one of 2 ways. We have discussed, the clients and the trackers. Again, if your game has a specific client that shows up in the Archipelago launcher, use that. That means someone has made a custom implementation to make it work with Archipelago. If you don't use it, things will not work. You will not get your checks. You will not send checks. Your game will probably not be playable. Use the custom launchers, the clients. Read the setup manuals. We have talked about, the pop tracker and everything else. There is one honorable mention. If you are an Android user, this exists. This Archipelago Alerts made by W. Jones is a little Android app where you can plug in your connection information for your Archipelago. You can pick the exact slots you want notifications for. It's very helpful. You can customize the rooms a little bit. It's just for you, but it looks kind of like this where, okay, this game received whatever from whoever. And you can have it like, all right, show me everything that I've subscribed to or just specific games. I have been using this and it's been very helpful because of the different time zones. I can, I wake up in the morning, I'm like, oh, my friends on the East Coast found all of these things while I was asleep. My friends out in Southeast Asia found these other things before I was awake, like whatever. You can see things and get notified about specific games that are in your Archipelago, but it's only for Android. Unfortunately, there's no iOS version. There's only Android, but I want to shout this out because I have been using this and it has been awesome for an async, because then I don't feel like I have to sit at my computer all the time, or I don't have to log in and check just to see that nothing has happened. I can look at that and say, oh, that's an important check that unlocked something. Now I will go ahead, turn on my computer and check that out. But yes, would highly recommend. The notifications look like that. It's very, very helpful. So yeah, definitely would recommend this if you have an Android phone or tablet and you want to do more archipelagos. So that's pretty much it. That really does cover everything. And I mean, this video is going to be a lot longer than I wanted, but it is worth it to get you guys the right information and hopefully good visuals on how to do things. So just as a really, really quick review, what do you need to set up a single archipelago? Set up a brand new archipelago right off the bat. You need YAML files from every game and every person that's playing. They all send their YAML files to the host. You use the options generator to make your YAML files. You use the generate world after putting all the YAMLs in the players folder, and it spits out the zip file for you. You use either your local hosting or you use the AP website, which is what I recommend. And that will host your game. If you have custom games, you need to remember that the host also needs to get the APWorld file. Otherwise, their software doesn't know how to interpret your YAML. So whenever you're playing multi-world and somebody else is hosting, send them your YAML and the custom APWorld file, or point them to where they can download the APWorld file. Otherwise, the generator will not work if you don't have all of the information given to the host. So the host has to just put those through the custom worlds folder or the install AP option like I showed you. The host will launch the server, whether it's locally or on the website, like I said. You will get your patch files able to be downloaded. Set those up according to your game setup guide. I do not know all of them. And I know they're all very different. So you have to read your guide at least a little bit. Sometimes it's mod managers, sometimes it's emulators, whatever the case may be, you're going to have to go with what they say. From there, use either the text client or your game specific client, connect using the information from the server, and you should be good to go. And if you're using a tracker, which again, I highly recommend, make sure that is properly connected as well. Otherwise, you're going to have a big headache trying to keep track of everything. And for all these things, you should get some kind of confirmation that you are connected, whether it's a green light or a message that just says connected to AP at whatever. But at that point, you are good to go. You are good to start gaming. Find your first couple checks. Make sure everything is sending properly between games. Make sure it pops up in the server window, and you're fine. You're good to go. Have fun. That's why you do this. You do this to have fun, believe it or not. Unfortunately, my mixer reset for some reason, so I don't know where exactly in the video it cut off. But what I was talking about with some of my hot tips, read up on your game settings, use the game's dedicated client, or it literally will not work. And if your game doesn't have a dedicated client, just use the text client and you'll be fine. Read your game's page about trackers and other tools that might be game specific. I know Hollow Knight, for example, has a bunch of helper software basically that you can see from the pause menu. Has map mods to help you with traversing the map and not getting soft locked. Kingdom Hearts 2 has a bunch of extra tools that you have to download with the through the mod manager in order to get everything to function properly. Stuff like that. You know, you got to read your game setup manuals. If you are switching between Archipelago games, or you're playing the same game across multiple servers, let's say, I highly, highly, highly recommend you completely shut down the Archipelago software on your computer, like completely exit, quit out of it, reopen it, and then change your server settings. The reason I say this is because when I was doing a solo AP, I had 3 or 4 games going and Wind Waker was one of them. And at the same time, I was helping my wife get set up with an Archipelago. And so we were playing, with a couple games between us. And I switched from mine over to hers. And because I didn't fully close out of the Archipelago software and I thought, I'll just change the server, whatever. I didn't shut down my game. I didn't shut down the Archipelago software. I just, went back to the start menu of Wind Waker. When I connected to our shared game, it misread which Archipelago I was in, and it sent all of the checks that I had found in mine. It sent all of those over. So suddenly I had items that didn't make sense. She was getting stuff that didn't make sense, and I hadn't done anything yet. Big problem. Kind of ruins the whole point of an Archipelago. So if you are doing multiple Archipelagos at the same time, highly recommend close out of everything, reopen it, and then change your server connection settings. Otherwise, you do risk kind of screwing things up. And for a big Archipelago, and you got, 10 plus people, and suddenly everyone gets everything from your game, or people start getting stuff that doesn't make sense, or you try sending stuff that they already have, it's going to cause problems. It's going to kind of ruin it, and you don't want to be that guy. So just be very careful about doing them at the same time. You can do it. It's totally doable. You just got to be careful and make sure you shut things down in between. I highly, highly, highly recommend, for those of you new to this, follow the setup and hosting steps that I showed you. Set up a solo randomizer. Do some test runs. Play around with your different settings. Find what you are most comfortable with. Try out doing local hosting and using the website. Learn how to do this stuff. Randomizers are not for everyone. I know that. I love them. I think Archipelago is the coolest thing ever. But but it may not be your cup of tea. You might be on the fence. Give it a try. Get used to the pacing of an asynchronous where you have to stop one game, open up the other. Essentially you're waiting on another person to find something for you. Get used to that pacing, because realistically, most archipelagos, if you're playing with people online, odds are pretty good you're going to be doing async in some way, or people are going to be playing multiple games. So you can't be playing everything all at the same time. If it's a smaller group, yeah, you might all be playing live together. You might be playing synchronized or synchronous. But get used to the pacing and what it's like to, basically get desperate, learn all your little tricks as best you can, and then finally know how to admit, like, okay, I'm stuck. I'm, what's affectionately called BK'd or Burger Kinged. You're in BK mode. There's a whole story behind that. You can go find more info elsewhere. But BK mode is when you are out of things to do. You are stuck. You are locked. You are whatever. Learn what that's like. And, being able to kind of accept when it's time to switch or time to stop because you have to wait for somebody else. And then last, and I cannot say this enough, know your settings. If you feel like a pro gamer at whatever your game is and you want it to have tricks and glitches and all sorts of non-vanilla stuff, know your stuff. Because if you aren't comfortable with it, then you have to either admit to cheating the item in because you can't get past something, or you have to concede that you and others might be locked out of finishing the archipelago, which is a big problem. Because the more people you have, the more that can cascade. In my 10-game community archipelago right now, I am locked out of stuff. There is nothing I can do at this time. And I have done my out of logic stuff already. So I am simply waiting on other people. The more people you have, the more frequently that's going to happen. So don't require those glitches and tricks and precise movements and out of bounds unless you are 100% confident you can do it. Because as I said before, the game can and will use that against you, and you should expect it to. You should expect to find the thing you needed to get past a doorway behind that doorway, because it will happen. It has happened. It will happen. It will continue to happen. That's the joy of randomizers with very loose logic. So those are my tips and tricks based on my own experiences, and with a lot of time spent watching different types of randomizers and different archipelagos. Like I said before, this is one of my favorite things. I think it's a really cool way of kind of revitalizing and revamping games that people are very familiar with and have played, a million times. This helps keep things fresh and new and interesting. And I think it really makes you think and flex your problem solving skills with saying, all right, I can do this thing, but not this thing. Or, maybe I can do this thing with the tools I have, even if it's not what I want to have. And, you find new ways of doing things. There's stuff I have learned through randomizers that apply to the base game that I just had no idea about. So, try it out, see what works best for you, and just have fun with it. That's the most important thing. We're doing this to have fun. So with that being said, I hope you found this helpful. I know it's gone on for a very long time, but I was trying to cover a lot of stuff in as short of a time as I could. If you think this has been helpful for you, I'd really appreciate it if you, follow the channel. I'm here on YouTube. I also stream over on Twitch. Twitch is really my main thing, but I make sure all the VODs are here on YouTube for you guys, as of a couple months ago when I got it set up. If you have questions about this, you can reach out to me in the comments section. You can join my Discord and bug me there. That's where, I've been kind of collecting a lot of this information. If you're interested in doing, a game or two for our community randomizer, I am planning one for probably starting in mid to late August, maybe going until the end of September. We're in the middle of one right now. It's been a lot of fun. Everyone seems to be having a great time with it. So I definitely plan on doing this more in the future. So yeah, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate your patience in me not getting other videos done. Like I said, life has not stopped for anyone. There are many things I have not been able to do because I've been busy doing a bunch of other real life things. So again, appreciate your patience. And thank you so much for watching. Please let me know if you need any more help with this, and I will do everything I can to help get you set up for your own archipelago. And so until next time, I have been Bass. I will continue to be Bass. You can call me Bass if you want, but just be nice, be kind, and drink some water.